Carly, thank you so much for joining me here on Main Street Magic. I am so excited to talk to you today and hear all about your life and this new cookbook that you have coming out.
Thank you so much for having me. I have loved following your podcast and your journey. So I'm so excited to get to chat with you today.
Yeah, and we've only talked in person for a very brief moment. We ran into each other once at Magic Kingdom,
Yes.
so I'm really excited to finally sit down. And first, for our listeners who maybe somehow don't know who you are, you grew up in New Jersey, eating bagels and pizza.
Still
You're
do. Well, I don't live there
Still
anymore, but I'm
do.
still eating that.
Well, and now, you're one of the country's top theme park experts and writers, writing for USA Today, CNN, BBC, NPR, like you name it, you have written for them. Walk me through a little bit of that jump. How did you get from growing up in New Jersey and to now being a top expert in the theme park field?
Absolutely. I'm really lucky. I know a lot of like other Disney adults that came to Disney parks. It didn't become a part of their life until later on. I'm
Mhm.
really lucky that I was born into a Disney family. So my parents were already going to Walt Disney World. They're East Coasters, so that's where you naturally go. They had their honeymoon at Walt Disney World. So I just was raised in it. So I have been visiting the parks since the 80s, an annual pass holder since it started in the early 90s. Like my mom
Wow.
still has our original annual passes where you had like your picture on it and everything. So it's kind of in my blood. And I truthfully, if I wasn't working in this world, I'd be doing the same exact thing, which is going to the parks with my
Mhm.
friends and family. And I'm also really lucky that all of my family and close friends really enjoy doing this. And kind of as an adult, I'm like, what else would you do? I don't know. Like, I don't want
Yeah.
to go out to a nightclub, so we meet up at Magic Kingdom. And I'm so lucky because I know not everyone, they try to find friends that are Disney people. I'm just really lucky to be surrounded by it. And I actually started my career in the music business, which is a little bit of a different change of pace, but actually like not too different once you peel back the layers. There's
Yeah.
a lot to it. I was in the PR side, so a lot of writing. So I've always been a writer. And about 10 years ago, I was like, I'm really over the music industry. There's a lot of aspects I didn't like, but what I did love was the writing part and the storytelling part. And so I was like, you know what? There's nothing I know better than Disney parks. It's been my passion forever. And I love writing. That's just always been a part of me since I was a child. So I was like, I think I can do this because I have the determination to, and I'm going to do it. And here I am today, and it's been the best decision I have ever made.
Wow, that is absolutely amazing. This just makes me think, my brother, who is a keynote speaker, one of the things he says all the time is, find your passion and find something you're good at. And wherever
Mhm.
those two things intersect is what you should do with
Wow.
your life.
I
And I
love that.
love that that is what you are doing with your life. And you're
Yeah.
so very, very passionate about it.
Yeah.
So through the years and your childhood into growing up, becoming a theme park writer, obviously food is such a large part of theme parks, of the culture of going to the parks. Was this something that you have loved all along? Like, what is your first memory of food, and how does your relationship with food in the parks kind of come together?
Absolutely. I mean, I love food. I come from a food family. I mean,
Mhm.
my favorite day of the week growing up was Saturday nights when we'd go out to dinner, studying the menus. I still do the same thing, no matter if I'm going to Disney World or like a TGI Fridays. It doesn't matter to me. I love food. It's a Jersey thing. A lot of your socialization revolves around food. And Disney's the same way. A lot of those moments and memories might be over a Mickey pretzel that you
Yeah.
shared with, your kid for the first time they ever saw Cinderella Castle and whatnot. We all have those stories. And kind of my first memory of Disney food is at the very first Epcot International Food and Wine Festival, which was in, I believe, 1995 or six. My parents were like, they were also foodies. They're like, I dare you to try caviar from the Russia booth. So I had never had caviar at the time. I was a child. I probably didn't know what it was. I think I remember calling it fish eggs.
Hmm.
And they were like, we dare you to eat this caviar. And I was like, I'll do it. Let me try it. And I remember like standing by a trash can, my roots of dining above a trash can go back 3 decades. I remember standing over this trash can and I'm like, maybe I'll throw up, maybe I'll like it. I ate the caviar, which was on a little blini from the Russia booth. And I was like, wait, I like this. And that was kind of like my Disney foodie awakening. So over 30 years ago, and clearly haven't looked back since.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. Russian booth, caviar at the festivals.
Yes.
Um, I think this sets up so perfectly, and we're going to talk about in a minute your new cookbook that is coming
Mhm.
out, the unofficial Disney Parks Retro Cookbook. Before we start to dive into that, because it's always such a hot topic, and of course every year this comes back up about Disney adults, and
Mhm.
there is some article that is either republished or somebody just wants to push some buttons and writes one again. Being a writer, being someone who has visited the theme parks in Disney World and having such a love for it for decades and decades, what is your take on the Disney adult and the way that it's sometimes viewed, both, I guess, internally in the Disney community and from the outside of it?
Yeah, I mean, still to this day, my friends and family get it, but I also have friends that do not understand at all what I'm doing,
Hmm.
why I'm doing it. And I think with any fandom that's niche, like Disney adults, there's always a toxic side. So there's going to be members of the community that represent it really well, and then members of the community that are the ones that, push a child over to get the best shot of a parade. And that's not
Yeah.
what we want to do nor
Yeah.
condone. So I think there's always every fandom has this, whether you're into movies, anime, whatever. There's always two sides to it. I think with Disney adults, I will say theme parks are art. They are ingrained in American popular culture. They have been exported around the world. I mean, there is probably no one more famous in, the USA in the world than like Dolly Parton and Walt Disney, both
Yeah.
proprietors of theme parks. So there's something there. And to kind of show people that, we call them cast members because Disney Parks is one big theatrical production. So that means Disney Parks is living art. So I try to show people that, maybe don't get it. Like theme parks are art. So
Hmm.
many elements, whether it's just the aesthetics, the architecture, the design, the performance. Theme parks are art. And I have to say, the Disney adults that I know are some of the most well educated, well traveled, wealthiest people that I know in all facets of my life. And I think that's a reason. I mean, it's culture, and not to get all like highbrow on it, but it is art. And I hope people see it for what that is. And I understand being apprehensive about it, but there's so many layers to it. And that's kind of what I've always wanted to do in my career in theme park journalism is just open someone's eye, especially like in the food world,
Hmm.
oh, it's just cheeseburgers and stuff. No, Mickey has a Michelin star. So
Yeah.
you better take that seriously.
Oh yeah, I think that is the absolute perfect rebuttal to those
Yeah.
negative and toxic Disney adult articles. So I'm just going to use this as my response to them in the future.
Yes, yeah.
Um,
And again, like who cares what people spend money on,
yeah.
because it's your own money, and we don't get this sort of criticism for, annual ski passes, Super
Hmm.
Bowl tickets,
Yep.
tennis lessons. You can go on and on and on about all these like extracurricular activities and how much they cost. But my $1,500 Disney World annual pass is a lot cheaper than Super Bowl tickets. And I
Yeah.
get to go for the whole year. So
Yes. Yes, you do. We do, and we'll be due for it again here soon. We do an episode every other year about the cost of a vacation, and we
mhm,
break down 10 different vacation locations throughout the United States. Things like going to a football game, going to a
right.
Broadway show, concerts, skiing, things like that, and what the cost per hour looks like when you break it
Oh, yeah.
down. And in the end, I think Disney and Universal were number one and two as the best value per hour when you actually break down what you get for what you're spending. So yeah, I think it's something that a lot of folks, maybe not understand. And you bring up food again, which is what
Mhm.
we're gonna jump into in
Yeah.
your cookbook. Because it is such a part of Disney World, of theme parks, of Disneyland, any of the Disney parks, obviously. So the cookbook that you have coming out, it's written with travel journalist and cookbook author Julie Tremaine. It has
Mhm.
a foreword by the one and only legendary Bob Gurr.
Yes.
How did these connections and relationships come about, and what was it like pitching this cookbook, not only to the group that's involved with it, but to publishers and all as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Julie Tremaine is one of my good friends who is also in this theme park journalism world. So we have known each other and become good friends throughout the years, covering attraction openings and whatnot. And like you said, she's already an accomplished author. She wrote Disney Villains Cookbook, the Seinfeld Cookbook. So she knows her stuff. And we are both really good friends with Dusty Sage, who owns Mice Chat, which is one of my favorite Disney parks fan sites. And
Hmm.
he doesn't just do that, he's also a Disney history preservationist, and he runs the Walt Disney Historic Storybook Mansion in Los Feliz. I don't know if you've ever been there, but it is
No.
where it's this beautiful mansion, and it's where Walt Disney and his family lived in the 30s and
Hmm.
40s. It's where he worked on Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. And that is kind of our Bob Gurr connection, is through that whole world of Disney history. So getting him to write the forward, obviously legitimizes the project, but is like so amazing for a theme park nerd like
Yeah.
myself, like just the
Oh
name.
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
crazy.
That's amazing. I mean, and again, to think of all the folks that could be a part of it, and Bob Gurr, who has been there since day one, who
Right.
has been a part of all of this coming throughout all these years. What what made you feel like this was a cookbook that needed to exist? Because I know there are a lot of,
Mhm.
Disney cookbooks out there that recreate stuff they're doing in the parks. A lot of them are modern. A lot of them are, what you can maybe get in the parks right now. What made you want to not only create a cookbook that included recipes from the past that maybe are no longer available, but also tie it to the history of those dishes and break it down into these different, eras of Disney throughout the decades?
Absolutely. So basically, there are a lot of Disney cookbooks, but they're either solely based on like the early days of Disneyland or super modern. And a lot of them, they don't have pictures. It's just the text, and they
Hmm.
don't, none of them really have the story that goes along with it. And I think the story element is how this even came to be in the first place, because at Disney, food is a form of storytelling just as much of as an attraction is.
Yeah.
We have these beautiful works of art, even if it's a cupcake, it has a story behind it. And what happened was, I spend many nights when I can't sleep going down the rabbit hole of like YouTube videos, Disney websites. And about 2 years ago, I was just in my usual can't sleep Disney rut, and I found the 1981 cast member manual of every single Walt Disney World restaurant. So
Oh
this was
wow.
like hundreds of pages long, a PDF, and it was literally the menu of every single restaurant at every single location, from the resorts to the parks at Walt Disney World in 1981. And I'm going through and I'm like, I was an 80s Disney kid. So I was like, wow, I remember this place, or I haven't thought of this place in a long time. And the next day, I was going for drinks with my co author, Julie. We were actually, funny enough, at the Bubba Gump at City Walk. So random. We're at the
Yeah.
Bubba Gump at City Walk, but I like it because it's a chill place away from the crowds.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, you're not going to believe what I found. And I was like, it feels like something, but I didn't know if it was just like a one off story, because her and I have worked together on historical restaurant pieces before, or if it was something more. And she's like, this isn't a story. This is a cookbook. And I was like, really? Like, I could see it because there was so much to unravel. But, at the same time, I know how hard every industry is. And I was like, yeah, that sounds nice. I would love to write a book. I've always wanted to write a book, but I was like, it just sounds like something, okay, yeah, I mean, we'll do it. And then it's never going to happen. And she was like, no, like, let's write a proposal. And for me, it was so important that I don't want, these like spiral bound cookbooks that I have all of them,
Mhm.
the Disney ones. I love them. Again, no pictures, no story, no like context. I was like, I want this to be a coffee table book, essentially, that's big and thick, full color pictures, and I want to have 2 pages of story behind every single recipe. And we're like, okay, let's make a proposal. So we wrote up 5 examples, and then that's kind of where it all took off. And that was October 2024. So
Wow.
yeah, a long
Wow.
process, I will say.
Oh yeah. And I love that you're putting these stories with the recipe because much like, people and what I hope this podcast can do and all the other stuff that you'll do as promotion for this book is a lot of people get the book and they go, "Cool, I've got it. It's in my hand." But they don't know the story of where it came from. And you're
Mm,
doing the same thing with these dishes.
yeah.
It's one thing to get a dish in the parks or to recreate one at home and go, well, "This is really cool. I like it," but you don't know any of the story of how it got to that point of you taking that first bite. So I love that you're doing this within the book. Looking back, I'm sure you had hundreds of recipes and
Oh
dishes that are
boy.
no longer around.
Oh yeah.
Stories to tell. What was your process for choosing the recipes that made the book, and how much of that was driven by the finished product itself compared to the story? Were there some items where you thought this story's so good, we got to put the dish in it, if maybe even the dish isn't something you would have loved?
Yeah. So I definitely started, I knew there were some things that I, without a doubt, I'm like, I need to have this in the book. Some of them being early Disneyland, like the Chicken of the Sea pirate ship restaurant and its famous tuna
Wow.
burger. That had to be in there. And that alone is like gold because it has an iconic recipe, but then the story of the pirate ship and everything that went with it was like a no brainer. Some other ones were Pleasure Island, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
very sorely missed by many of us Walt Disney Florida people. And then all the way up to Muppets Courtyard. We have Mama Melrose and Pizza Rizzo in there. And
Yeah.
what I love being able to span from, 1955 all the way up is there were so many to pick from, but we had to land on, I believe it's around 60
Mm-hmm.
places. So I took about 3 months. This was the beginning of 2025, right after
Wow.
we got the deal with HarperCollins, which I am so appreciative to them for understanding our vision. I know as Disney people, a lot of time we're met with like, we have crazy
Mm-hmm.
face when we tell them our ideas because, you either get Disney or you don't. And I'm so lucky to have partners that understand Disney. Our marketing manager, like huge Disney nerd, when we Zoom, she has a big Epcot poster behind her. And I'm like, yes, they
Yes.
understand. So
Yeah.
I took about 3 months to really select the places. To be honest, there's so many to pick from, which I'm so excited for like a part two because
Yeah.
this was just the beginning. There are so many places of yesteryear that it was kind of easy. It was just really narrowing it down. And that's where it came down to like, what are the places people talk about the most?
Mm-hmm.
What has the best stories? And then also some dishes that you're like, you have to have this in there. Like the blue shrimp from Star Wars Galactic
Yeah.
Starcruiser had to have that in there. It's so famous in the last, few years. So that was like a fun process. I love research because I'm just like a nerd that loves learning and stuff. And it was really humbling to know that I think as Disney fans, one of the most exciting things is no matter how much and we all know so much, that there's always something new to learn and always something to shock you. And that was like
Yeah.
me every day for a whole month of just looking up these places and finding old menus. It was so much fun in that process. And I'm really happy with the crop of places that we have selected and kind of the way we organized it, starting from the beginning of
Mm-hmm.
Disneyland to the opening of Walt Disney World to the Disney Decade, aka Michael Eisner. So it was really fun to kind of just show how the way the food evolved was also how like the Walt Disney Company evolved in the theme park space.
Yeah, and I love that's how it tells this story. So again, it is not just a cookbook; it is a story that you can read throughout the history of the Disney parks and the food and all. During your research, was there any maybe one individual story or dish that just stuck out to you that just kind of blew your mind, and you're like, "Wow, I didn't know any of this." Is there anything like that from the
Yeah,
book?
I will say, I think this was something that I knew about because I had experienced it, but I think a lot of people don't know about the spring roll wagon right now at Magic Kingdom, which everyone knows and loves. It's
Mm-hmm.
probably the most hyped Disney snack I could think of in modern time, besides like the iconics like Dole Whip and whatever.
Sure.
Everyone talks about cheeseburger spring rolls, the lines are still there. But one of my favorite things about that is a lot of people don't realize that it actually started as an egg roll wagon in the late 80s and early 90s. And I have vivid memories as a kid of my parents taking me to this egg roll wagon all the time. And they had a traditional, like, Asian inspired egg roll, but they also had this one that was hot dog and American cheese. And then it was like deep fried in a
No
wonton
way.
wrapper. And I just like have a vivid memory as a kid biting into it and the cheese like bursting in my mouth. And it was so hot. My mouth was on fire. And I talk about this story all the time, and like no one remembers how that was the evolution from the egg roll cart to now the spring roll cart. And I just love that. And that's kind of Disney dining in general. There's everything comes from something. And that was
Yeah.
kind of one of my favorite pieces to write about. We have that hot dog and cheese egg roll.
Oh,
It's a great,
good.
like party dish and really easy to make in there, because a lot of people don't know that it wasn't always, the Magic Kingdom spring roll cart at the front of
Yeah.
Adventureland. It has kind of this rich history going all the way back to Walt Disney, infusing these like Asian influences at Disneyland, with Tahitian Terrace. So it's just, that was one of the most fascinating, but there were so many moments where I was like, wow, I love this.
Oh, I would totally eat a hot dog and cheese
Oh,
spring roll or
so
egg roll.
good.
That sounds
Yeah.
amazing. So I'll be recreating that one. If
Yes.
if you could come up, I always like to think of additional spring rolls that they could make. Is there like a Carly one that you wish they would recreate, like some sort of fusion, something if you
Yes.
had your way?
Okay, so this is one they already did. It's the chicken cordon bleu.
Hmm.
I loved that one. If they
Okay.
could bring that, like I think about it way too often. I would love if they recreated that. Also, I think of like, have you ever had the like lean pocket or hot pocket? That was the broccoli cheddar in that
Oh yeah.
creamy sauce.
Oh, I
That
lived
would
off
be a
those in
great
college.
one too. To
That
be
would.
honest, I don't love the cheeseburger one. It is
Yeah.
not my favorite. I like the pepperoni one, but I
Same.
really like some of the ones they were doing when the spring roll cart was kind of moving around
Yeah.
Adventureland. There was some really good flavor. So I hope that they'll have the chance. I know these two flavors are so popular. So they
Yes.
don't need to do new ones, but I want them to, go back to when they would experiment more with some different flavors.
Oh, completely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, is there a dish, one single dish that didn't make this version of the cookbook, but it's already number one on your list for part two when that comes out?
Yes. So I am a big fan of Port Orleans. And unfortunately, the cuts have to be made and it's hard
Hmm.
to include everything. But where Scat Cats Club Cafe and Lounge are, so like where you get the Mickey shaped beignets
Hmm.
and the Jazz Club, there used to be a table service restaurant there. I may not pronounce it right, even though I have family from Louisiana, but it was Bon Familles. I wish I
Oh,
could say that right. I hope I said that right. That is one of those places like I remember going to as a kid. I don't remember the food, but everyone talks about this prime rib sandwich. And
ooh,
so in the next one, that is a place I'm definitely going to include. I've had several friends that were like, you need to include this in the next one. This is my family's favorite in the 90s. So that is the top of my list. And I just love Port Orleans. It's so
yes.
magical, especially
Oh,
in the
yeah.
food world. And yeah, so that is going to be like number one for the
Yeah.
next
Yeah, well, we have a stay there in a couple of weeks for Father's Day weekend, going back there. And we finally got to visit New Orleans a couple years ago. And yeah, that connection in food and all there, as a foodie was just absolutely incredible.
Yeah,
You
it
know,
is amazing.
yeah. So you painted such a beautiful picture of that hot dog and cheese egg roll and remembering it as a kid.
Yeah.
When people talk about not only Disney food, but a lot of times Disney in the past. How much of that do you think is them missing that actual item or flavor? And how much of that do you think is built off of the memories and nostalgia that are attached to it, which becomes such a big part of all of our lives?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's both because our judgment is always clouded by nostalgia.
Yeah.
If you think of that, like I have a favorite restaurant when I go back home that I eat at almost every single night in New Jersey. Is it the best food? Probably not, but it's the memories tied to it. It's like the moments that happened when you were there. It's family and friends you dined out with. And that definitely clouds our judgment. Like I would never say this is the best food. And I think that's the same thing with Disney parks is you remember visiting the Polynesian for the first time in the 80s and seeing that waterfall. And then maybe
Yeah.
you dined at the Coral Cafe and you had something that was great. Maybe you don't remember what you ate, but you remember that moment. And I think that is us with Disney as Disney fans is sometimes the memories are more important than what you're eating. And that's not to
Yeah.
say there's not great food at Disney. Some of my favorite restaurants and whatnot are there, but it is definitely a hand in hand balance, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I liken it to movies, and I go back and I'll watch some of the movies that I grew up with,
Mm,
from like RoboCop to Rambo to
yeah.
Monster Squad, and luckily, unlike a lot of these foods, we can access those today. We can watch those movies today. And you go back and you watch them and you're like, wow, this is not very good, but
Yeah.
it still gives you that same feeling
The
inside that you
feeling.
had growing up with it.
Mhm.
Which again is why I love that you're doing this cookbook so that you can access this food again that you maybe remember and all from your childhood. Um, if you had to pick one era from the book that you think had the best food overall, which one would you pick?
It's going to be the Michael Eisner era. I mean, again, this is probably not necessarily the best food, but I think memorable food and just such a period of great change for Walt Disney World, especially. And there are so many amazing things that came out of that era.
Mm-hmm.
Like we have Writer Stop with the carrot cake cookie. So we have the original recipe because obviously it's still available at Charlie Treats at Hollywood Studios, but
Mm-hmm.
it is not the same recipe. So we have the original recipe in there. During his time, we also had the Hanwich, which is arguably one of the most iconic Disney
Yeah.
snacks that we kind of have seen a rebirth of in new forms along the way. I wish we would have like a full-time Hanwich again because it really was genius. I just don't think he was like ahead of his time with that because in today's age, people would go nuts for a portable thing that
Oh
has,
yeah.
whatever. It's like the cones at Disneyland, cozy cone, but they
Yep.
don't call it the Hanwich. But if we brought back the Hanwich to Walt Disney World today, it would be all over Instagram. It would be
Yeah.
the hottest thing. And then, of course, another great thing to come out of that era was Pleasure Island. And along
Mm-hmm.
with that, so many places that we had amazing restaurants, nightclubs, theatrical nightclubs like Adventurers Club, one of my most missed places. So I would say that to me, with storytelling, food, everything is my favorite chapter of it all.
Oh, I love that. I cannot wait to dig into all of this
Yes,
in the
I'm
book.
excited.
Um, you know, you've been covering food and all throughout the years, and for again me personally, in my own opinion, I think we were at a point where Disney focused so much with the birth and rise of social media on what looked good but not necessarily what tastes good.
Yes.
What have you seen progress in the past decade through social media in the way that Disney has potentially adjusted, making things that not only look good and people want to put on their reels, their stories, but actually taste good now? Have you seen that progress throughout these years?
Absolutely. And I think you hit the nail on the head. Social media is such a powerful tool. And this kind of all broke open with Walt Disney World, Disneyland in like the early 2010s when it started to be like a food Disney culture
Mm-hmm.
online. And that was all like cupcakes and flavored churros.
Yeah.
And those were all things that were like visually very cool looking, but not necessarily taken seriously or great. But that is what started everything. And I think that led to Disney being taken seriously in the food space.
Mm-hmm.
And it was because of the social media attention. Now, all of a sudden, Disney is getting applauded for, its dining. We have a Michelin star at Victoria and Albert's. And you have to also think of it. Michelin only came to Central Florida and South Florida a few years ago. And without a doubt, that can be traced to Walt Disney World paving the way for the culinary scene in Orlando with, I'll say, California Grill. When that opened in the 90s, ushering in that,
Mm-hmm.
California fusion to Central Florida with seasonal menus. that was before Orlando was a foodie town. It's a foodie town now. And
Yeah.
you can't argue that Disney played a pivotal role in putting the Central Florida culinary scene on the map. And that's like because of their resources and because of the things they were doing. And it's finally getting the attention it deserves. And, I don't think the Central Florida food scene would be the same without Walt Disney World's involvement.
Oh yeah. Is there a certain dish, snack, treat, whatever it may be, that is very, very popular, usually within the Disney community, that you personally think is just a bit overrated and you really don't love? And maybe it could be the cheeseburger egg roll, maybe it's something else.
Okay, so this is going to be an entire establishment, and I don't get it, and I'm so sorry if you love this place. Uh, Les Halles in the France Pavilion, which is the boulangerie bakery.
Hmm.
I have eaten probably everything they have there. I appreciate what they're trying to do. It it is far from like being a great or even like good French bakery, and people go nuts for it. Like
Oh
it
yeah.
is so crazy to me. Like the baguette is fine, but like the croissant sandwiches, they taste like something I can get really from like a gas station and microwave. And I hate to be so cruel because I I love trying new things and whatnot, but this place is always a mystery to me. And
Yeah.
it's really funny. A couple of weeks ago, I was in Epcot with my friend Shay, and we were eating all around, and he wanted to get some new pictures of the food from there. So we ordered a bunch of things. And as we're eating, I think it was like the lobster bisque, which I do enjoy that. It's a really cheap snack and it's in a bread bowl. So it's like hearty and like a
Hmm.
really good value. It's good. It's not anywhere close to the best soup at Walt Disney World. And I believe we had like the ham and cheese croissant and a few other pastries. As we're eating these, all these people are walking by and they're like, whoa, oh my God. And I was like, okay, have you never been to like your local bakery in your town? Because the pastries in my small town are making way better pastries than this. And it's not to knock it. I love trying everything, but that is one place I do not understand. I do not understand how people are like gagged over it, the power
Yeah.
that it holds. And I do not understand it. I don't know how you feel about it.
Funny enough, we don't go there because it's always so slammed and busy.
Yeah,
So I
slam,
don't have
always.
like a crazy opinion on it. But I'm also of the mind a lot of times, and we've eaten all around Disney World, and when
Mhm.
new things come out, we try them, and we've dined at probably every restaurant, but maybe three of them or something in their, the current way that they stand. But I also find a lot of times with places like that, the build up sometimes just isn't worth it. Like one of the stories I tell is it took us a while to get to California Grill.
Mhm.
It's been 8 or 9 years ago since the first time we ate there, but there was such a big buildup. I remember going into it thinking there's no way that it can live up to this hype. Now it did, but there's plenty of places that I've gone to that I think I was so ingrained that this is going to be the best thing I've ever had. And for me, it personally wasn't, which somehow kind of makes it worse. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? Like,
it
if you
does.
could go in blind and just have no opinion on it whatsoever, it'd be interesting to see what your thoughts are based on when there is a line out the door all the time. So now I almost want to make it a point for when my wife and I go back to like go wait in the line and try
Please,
a few
please.
items, and I'll get back to you on what we think.
Yes,
Um,
I've never understood it. And I love that the ability to try maybe things that are new to people,
mhm.
but I'm just like, this is not going to be my go-to
Right.
every time
Yeah.
I've ever had it. And it's been many times over the years.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Is there a food or a couple foods that nobody seems to talk about that aren't on that popularity level that you think are just incredible and you kind of wish more people knew about them?
Yes. So definitely, and this is going to be a restaurant as a whole that, California Grill gets all the attention. I personally have dined there many times, both full in the restaurant and at the bar.
Hmm.
I've never had like a wow me moment. I go for the atmosphere, the view,
Yeah.
and a drink at the bar. I think that's beautiful. I love the history of it, how it used to be top of the world and have
Hmm.
dinner theater. But I think for what it has done in the Orlando culinary scene, I applaud it. I just don't love the food there. And I've never had that moment that I know so many other people have had, and I'm happy for. But I think the best restaurant at Walt Disney World, which doesn't get enough attention, is Narcoossee's at the Grand Floridian.
Yes.
And it's
Yes.
it's hard to say it's not a hidden gem because people do know about it, but when you're talking about that fine dining, everyone's like, Oh, California Grill,
Mhm.
California Grill. No, Narcoossee's is the best restaurant, in my opinion, if you want that elevated experience at Walt Disney World. I'm always getting the lobster bisque there. It's
Mhm.
absolutely incredible.
Yep.
Their entrees amazing. They change out seasonally. They right now they have this like chocolate bread pudding dessert. That's
Ooh.
insane. Cocktail and mocktail program. So much goes into it, and they also pipe in the fireworks. So you get that
Yes.
same experience, but it feels like you're closer to Magic Kingdom. I guess because it's not elevated, it's right on the
Mhm.
water and you can go outside. So you're getting that same kind of California grill vibes. I think the food is amazing and not nearly enough people talk about it.
Yeah.
So go
So
there,
I
please.
I knew we would get along once
Yeah.
we talked to each other, but this just reiterates that. So, for us, California Grill prior to COVID and them changing to the 50th menu and
Yeah.
going prefix and sticking with it, we did have some of those wow moments. We have not since then.
Mhm.
And
And
we've
that's
done
the
the
general
same.
sentiment across
Yeah.
everyone. Yeah.
But it gets talked about and praised so much because it lives on that atmosphere and location in the history. And Narcoossee's we have loved for so long. The lobster bisque, absolutely outstanding. I think it is the best soup bisques,
Their bread
whatever on
service
property.
too. Oh my
Bread
god.
service, best bread on property.
That's bread, I agree.
Um, and our friend who has now moved outside of the Disney realm to open another establishment in the Orlando area was part of the ones that created the latest cocktail and mocktail menu. And so when they first opened that, and we were able to go in and hear the stories behind how him and his team created those, and
Mhm.
just the way that they created all the dishes, it was after they did that refurb, and
Yep.
we absolutely love that spot. We would usually go and get there right at opening. We would rope drop it so we could go get a spot at the bar. We
Yep.
could sit and chat with him for a little while. And then, at the time, we'd have a cocktail and get the soup, have the bread service, and then we'd head into Magic Kingdom. So I
Yes.
love hearing you say that because I really don't think Narcoossee's it's not even enough love. It gets almost no love.
I agree
It
with you. I
blows
mean,
my mind.
there's always people in there. I mean, it is on the smaller side.
Hmm.
So there, I mean, it's not going anywhere, it's not hurting for
Yeah.
business, but it is on the smaller side, but like no one talks about it. And also you can order full menu at the bar, which you can't always
Yes.
do at a lot of places. And I also get there right at opening, sit
Yep.
at the bar. I don't even necessarily get entrees every time, but I will
Hmm.
get the lobster bisque, sometimes another appetizer. The freaking sea salt on the butter is like
Oh,
mind blowing. It is such a great restaurant and I want everyone to go there at least
yeah.
once. So I always tell people like if they're looking for that one like romantic meal, you can bring
Mhm.
kids, beautiful atmosphere, do a late night MK, go there and make that be if you want to do one table service meal that's nicer on your vacation, please
Yeah.
go there. So good.
Agreed. Yeah. Well, everyone, you heard it from Carly, so
Yes.
you got to go make a reservation. Um, so the whole premise of this book is for folks to recreate these dishes at
Mhm.
home. Was there a certain way you had to frame or make these recipes in the book so they were accessible to everyone and maybe not just the foodie or the person who considers themselves kind of that home chef, or their tweaks and twists that you had to make?
Yeah, absolutely. This is definitely adapted for the average person,
Yeah, I
with the
love that.
exception of one recipe. So,
Okay.
if you remember Steakhouse 55 at Disneyland, which is no more, before that, it was Granville Steakhouse, and they had this crazy 20-layer chocolate cake. And
Oh,
we have
wow.
recreated that for the book. That is the one that is difficult. I'm not going to lie.
Wow.
You could just read about it and look at the pretty picture of the cake if you are not experienced in that world. I am not. Luckily, my partner is a professional recipe developer and
Uh-huh.
tester. So that is all good for her. But everything else is really easy to make. I recipe tested all the cocktails and mocktails because I my first job was in bartending and I
Hmm.
still bartend whenever I get a free moment to do so at home and whatnot. So that was so fun to make these, but also the challenge was, you have to adapt things for the modern palate and also like the modern grocery store.
Yeah.
So a great example is the Tahitian Terrace, which was the Polynesian review show inside Disneyland Park. They had this punch that was like their famous drink because a traditional Hawaiian luau gives out mai tais and whatnot, but Disneyland at that time obviously didn't allow alcohol.
Hmm.
So their answer was this punch. So when I was testing the recipes, its main ingredient in the original one was Tang. No one drinks Tang anymore.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Tang is so crazy. It's so sweet. Like the original punch was like my teeth hurt. So the challenge was, how do I make it still have the spirit and flavor profile of the original one, but make it like, let's make it ingredients that are easy to get in the store
Yeah.
now. No one's drinking Tang. I mean, like I asked in my grocery store just for the heck of it, like, oh, do you have it? And the guy's like, I don't even know what you're talking about. Like you have to order it on Amazon. So it was
Wow.
fun to kind of adapt stuff for today.
Yeah. So how many of these recipes came from an original source compared to ones that you had to kind of recreate on your own from scratch?
Yeah, it's kind of a toss up because some recipes exist out there
Hmm.
and we kind of like fine tuned it for our own profile. So it's not like an exact copy of anything. We made it our own way. And then others just don't exist. And a great
Yeah.
example is the ABC soap opera Bistro at DCA, which was like the open for 18 months when it first, opened
Jeez.
up. So short lived. And I actually found a former restaurant manager on Facebook. A lot of this was through like stalking people online and Reddit.
Yeah.
Is if it was like something really old that has like no digital footprint, or a lot of places I have personal experiences at, and those were easy to do. Creating the congalouche at home for the Adventurers Club, easy. I've had it many times.
Yeah.
But some of these more like gems before my time, or at Disneyland before I was a regular there, I found people that work there that were like, okay, well, this is what it was like and whatnot. And that was part of the fun in, writing this was tracking down old people who worked there, families who remembered going to these places and sharing their
Wow.
own story. So it was kind of like a perfect storm of all different sources, whether it was personal or finding people.
That is absolutely amazing. Did you have any disasters in the test kitchen? Something that you made or recreated, and you're just like, oh, we got to go back to the drawing board on this one.
Yeah, I would say the monorail cocktails, which are one of my favorite parts of the book, where I don't know if you're familiar with them, but when the Contemporary opened, they had this series of cocktails that were themed after each of the different colors, so like monorail
Okay.
yellow, monorail purple. And some of them were just like so classically 70s ingredients. Like it was one martini with a grape juice, and I was making it and I was like, this is disgusting, So I was able to still have that flavor profile of grape, but adapt it to be like, okay, this is something I'd actually want to have. Because, as times have changed, so has people's taste, our
Yeah.
access to ingredients and whatnot. So that was also a fun challenge, was just thinking like, how do I make this modern while still celebrating like the spirit and the essence of that recipe?
Of course. And that's kind of like we were talking about earlier. When you go back and people, are they remembering the actual taste of something? Are they remembering this nostalgia? And you get to bring that up to date, and they're going to remember the nostalgia,
Right.
not maybe that specific taste of a grape juice in a martini or whatever it may be.
Exactly.
Um, if somebody came to you and said, Carly, I want to create like the perfect Disney retro night at home, what are maybe the 3 or 4 dishes that you would say have to be on their menu?
Yeah, I would say I think what a crowd pleaser, which I know people would like as long as they eat seafood, is the blue shrimp from Star Wars
Hmm.
Galactic Starcruiser, which you talked about. There, it's actually like surprisingly easy to make because it
Okay.
uses butterfly pea protein powder, which you can easily
Oh.
find, and it's really not like, it's only a few steps, and you can make your own cocktail sauce. You dye these shrimp blue, so I just kind of imagine having like guests over for a party and they're probably like, whoa, blue shrimp. And like we have a fun presentation with dehydrated seaweed. So I think that's one that you can kind of dazzle people with. But what I would suggest is picking like one decade and then
Hmm.
making recipes from that. And I actually got this idea. There's this Facebook group called the Cookbook Divas, and they cook through all these different, books and whatnot. And they're hosting a cook through of our book in the fall after it comes out, and they've separated it each week by the different decade. And I was like, wow, this is a great
Awesome.
idea. So I think pick the decade that you are like most interested in. It could even be, like the opening of Disneyland, and you can have everyone dress up, like as if they were going to the park in the 1950s, which
Oh,
I
so
think would be
cool.
really cute. So I would definitely say like pick a decade. And again, like a lot of these things are pretty easy to make. I'm not a chef, but I
Hmm.
love cooking and whatnot. A lot of them are really approachable, not like a million ingredients, which is
Yeah.
refreshing.
Yeah, I love that. There's so many cookbooks, and I love cooking at home. I often hate following recipes because there is
Yeah,
so much to them. And there often are a lot of items you can't just run up to your local grocery store and get.
exactly.
So I love the fact
Absolutely.
that, you're doing all that. I love that the blue shrimp are in there
Yeah.
because, especially for more of a casual Disney fan, not only are they going to think, why is there this blue shrimp? But a lot of them are going to go, what in the heck was the Galactic Starcruiser?
Yes,
Because it had
exactly.
such a short lifetime. So I think even bringing things like that in it is just brilliant. Um, how do you look at approaching part two of this book? I know we talked about, the one dish that you want to make sure that's in there.
Mhm.
You spent so much time living in the past to write this cookbook. Now you have an opportunity to kind of live in the present. And as you lead up to the next one, obviously with dishes that will be gone by the time you're looking at doing that, what are some of the things that you see now that you could see being in these future cookbooks as you continually to hopefully put these out?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, like I already have a like a super long list of
Mm-hmm.
places that didn't make the cut. I want to dig deeper into places that were at the Walt Disney Village. So, like a lot of people don't know, Chef Mickey's wasn't always at the Contemporary. It started where Disney Springs is today, and it was a totally different experience. I remember going as a kid and getting they had like a spiral bound cookbook they would sell that had Chef Mickey and his little hat on the cover. So I would love to dig more into that. I want to do more Pleasure Island spots. Like
Mm-hmm.
Fireworks Factory was one of my favorite spots. So I'd love to do like the ribs and the barbecue sauce from there would be my dream. And then, of course, we have lost a lot at Walt Disney World in recent times and will continue to do so because
Yeah.
of new projects that are coming and whatnot. So maybe something from Dinoland USA would be like my
Yeah.
dream to have on there. I love Restaurantosaurus. I loved that strawberry ice cream sandwich, which was the cookie ice
Mm-hmm.
cream sandwich. That was from I think Trillo Bites, the little quick stand. So
Yeah.
there's definitely a lot of potential, and you never know what's going to close next. That's Disney
Oh,
likes
I
to
know.
keep us on our toes.
Yes, they do. With the future of the Disney World, especially theme parks, the future of food, what are you kind of hoping to see as Tropical Americas opens up, as we get a Monstropolis type land, as we get Villains Land and Piston Peak? Are you excited about the future of food at Disney World, and what types of things are you hoping to see at some of these places?
I am. I think the reason to be excited is with social media and then also like the major attention Disney is getting from the real deal culinary world,
Hmm.
the pressure is on these chefs like never before to come up with menus that are like it's a lot. I mean, they have to be approachable to the average guest that maybe doesn't have an adventurous palate, but
Yeah.
they also have to be like inspiring and challenging to the chef to come up with these dishes. And I think a great example is Beak and Barrel. They have
Yeah.
this amazing octopus dish, which I
Hmm.
would have never expected. Like, okay, I'm going to a lounge in the Magic Kingdom and I'm eating chilled, basically octopus ceviche, and it's
Yeah.
amazing. I had
Yeah.
it 2 weeks ago with friends who had never had it, and they were like, this is amazing. We have gotten that as a direct result of social media and Disney's culinary path. So I'm like really excited for the new projects coming up, and I have to say probably Tropical Americas is what
Mhm.
most excites me. At Disney's Animal Kingdom, a lot of the chefs bring with them their own like global influences from their family. Have you had the arepas that's in that like
Yes, I
the
was just
newish
about to bring
menu?
those up.
Yes.
Amazing.
I had it for the first time. It's been out since last fall. I had it a couple weeks ago for my first time. It was one of the best things I've ever
Yeah,
eaten anywhere at Disney. And this is
agreed.
from like a little shack,
Yeah,
which is crazy. And the chef, Colombian born. It's his
yeah,
family influenced by his family's recipe and growing up there. And it's also serving as a test for what we may
yes,
get at Tropical Americas. That's
yeah.
exciting. So arepas, maybe a lot of people have never had one. Honestly, I
Hmm.
don't eat them often. I'm not an expert on it, but what I ate, the pulled pork one, was amazing. It
Yeah,
was so good. And that makes me super excited because they are experimenting with flavors, testing how it's going, and Disney guests are loving it. Every
yeah.
person I've mentioned this to, they'll be like, that's one of the best things I've eaten at Disney recently. I'm like, me too. So
Oh
I think
yeah,
it's an exciting time for us as Disney parks food fans because they're trying new things, and it brings kind of like the authenticity because here's the chef. Did he ever imagine he'd be working in Florida and getting to bring the taste of his home and recipes that
Yeah.
he grew up knowing? I mean, that's a beautiful story. And even if you don't know that story, know who the chef was, you're eating something, it's a snack and it's delicious. And
Yeah.
it's not a hot dog, even though I love hot dogs too. But
Oh yeah.
you're eating something exciting.
Of course, yeah. We had that for one of the first times, probably a few months back, and I
Mhm.
remember looking at my wife Rhonda and just being like, "If this is what's to come with tropical
Yep.
Americas, like we are really in for a treat." I also, in a similar fashion, the corn griddle cakes that are at Beacon Barrel
So
are
good.
outstanding. We
Mhm.
we go. My wife and I don't drink alcohol anymore, so Beacon Barrel, as far as a cocktail place, isn't much for us. But we
Hey,
go
that
there.
non-alcoholic drink with the cake pop
Yes,
is
it's
amazing.
amazing. It was
Yeah.
really, really good. My
Yeah.
only fault with it is I don't always want an entire dessert plate with my
Yes.
drink. So I
I
wish that you
agree.
could get it separate. But
Yeah.
they have added now. They have a most recently it's a Sprite that has some flavors of guava and all in it. And
Yep.
in that copper mug, it's good. But we go specifically, obviously the atmosphere is amazing, but we
Right.
go for those corn griddle cakes.
Oh,
And
they're
we'll get them
amazing.
every time. We just did it like a week ago
Yeah.
because I saw a reservation pop up. So we're going to close out with kind of a quick lightning round of questions.
Yes.
Walt Disney or Disneyland, Walt Disney World or Walt Disneyland, if you could only eat at one of those spots and you can pick a specific park within them for the rest of your life, which would it be?
It's going to be Disneyland, the
Okay.
resort as a whole,
Yep.
Disneyland Park, if I have to be specific. I don't think Disneyland excels at table service. They
Hmm.
excel at snacks. I
Yeah.
have like all of my favorite Disney snacks are at Disneyland Resort, from the Banyan skewer at Bengal barbecue to the little Matterhorn macaroon. Like they have such great snacks. Table service, again, not my favorite. I prefer Walt Disney World table service, but I'm much more like I want to continually snack all day and eat
Yes.
a lot
Yeah.
of different things. And that usually means snacks or sharing with people. And you cannot fight Disneyland's snack scene.
Yeah.
It is so good.
Agree. Best snack in any Disney park right now.
Okay, so I'm also going back to Disneyland. It is at
Okay.
Bengal Barbecue and it's
Hmm.
any of their skewers. Such
Okay.
great snacks that, it's not heavy. I
Hmm.
love how it's like you can have like protein, but it's also so flavorful. And that's such a long-standing booth and fan favorite. There is always a line. Great sauces. They add great seasonal. That is where I'm eating, and I love it.
All right. Maybe outside of Narcoossee's, what is the most underrated restaurant in Walt Disney World right now?
Ooh, I would probably say maybe not. You could say this is a restaurant. I guess it's more of a lounge, but they do have a menu. Is Dahlia Lounge at the
Hmm.
Grand Destino? Their food consistently amazing. Whether it's a cheese plate, I love their garlic shrimp. So
Yes.
good, and
Yes.
I eat there as much as I can, and just the setting is beautiful, and it's such an underrated gem. Like
Hmm.
we don't have a lot of gems at Disney World. This truly is because not enough people are talking about it. It is a beautiful restaurant, and then you're on the roof and you have the views of all the parks, the
Yeah.
fireworks, and the food and drink to back it up. So
Yeah. We haven't been there in a little bit. I think for some reason it might not be on the menu or they switch it up. They used to have a ham and cheese bocadillo with like some honey. That
oh,
was one of my favorite things
that
on
was one of my
property.
favorite things too. They got rid of it. I check
Oh,
the menu all the time to see if
yeah.
they're bringing it back because this is more, I would say, like a tapas restaurant, but the stuff
Yes.
is pretty like significant in
Yeah.
size to where I use it as my meal. That was so good.
Yeah, one of the last times I had it, we had been in the parks late, and of course they're open till like midnight. It's one of those few places, along with Three Bridges, that you can,
Right.
dine at past 10 or 11. And we were staying there, and I remember getting back to the room. My wife was so tired, I was like, "I'm going to Dahlia Lounge. I'm getting Bocadilla to go." And I just came back and ate it in the room,
So
watched
good.
Happily Ever After on the TV. It was absolutely perfect. What do you think is the most overrated restaurant that's currently open at Walt Disney World?
This is really easy. I may not pronounce it right, but it's Le Cellier, which is the
Hmm.
steakhouse in Canada. I know so many people love it. I have a few qualms with it. The way the room is designed, it's so loud in there always. I don't know if it's
Yes.
the way the ceilings are. It is like if you have any sensory issues, which I do not, but I'm bothered by how chaotic it feels.
Hmm.
I've also never had like a steak there that I've been like, wow, this is a wonderful steak. And again, you're paying top dollar. So I
Yeah.
want to have a good quality steak like you can get at Tiffin's or Wine
Hmm.
Bar George. So many great steakhouses, not even necessarily steakhouses, but like places to
Right.
get real steak on property. And this is like one of the most applauded Disney World restaurants. I do not get it. I'm sorry if you were a fan of it, but I don't understand.
Yeah, we usually tell people, wait for food and wine and go to the
Oh,
Canada booth and get the soup and get the little fillet there and
100%. I do
save your
get that
money.
every time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And
it does a good job
wonderful.
for the price.
Yep. I
100%.
agree with you completely. I do not understand it. There are a lot of great steaks out there at Disney World. So
Yeah.
try new
Oh
places.
yeah. Yes, definitely. Between both Disneyland and Walt Disney World, what is the one closed restaurant that you wish you could bring back?
Oh, well, this is not fully, well, it was attached to a restaurant, so I think it counts. It's the
Hmm.
Catwalk Bar, which is where Club 33 is today at Disney's Hollywood Studios, which is the
Oh, yeah.
upstairs where the Hollywood Brown Derby is. And
Hmm.
then there's that elevator if you go by the bathroom. Upstairs where Club 33 is was called the Catwalk Bar, and it was kind of like an extension of the quick service place that was below it called Soundstage Restaurant, which is obviously where the live shows now are.
Uh-huh.
And they had a really limited menu. They had like peel and eat shrimp, like nuts.
Oh,
But it was really cool because you were up in like the rafters of a working sound stage. So they had
how
all these
cool.
props hanging. And this was the 90s. So right around the corner was the animators' offices, like the real animators, not like actor
Yeah.
animators. And apparently, like I didn't remember this because I was a kid when I would go there, but the animators like were like writing Mulan and then they'd come there and hang out on a Friday night. And I just like that explodes my brain is that animators were right there in Animation
That's amazing.
Courtyard. And then they would go to this lounge slash restaurant and like hang out there after the work hours. And that is something that like, well, we're never going to get anything like
Yeah.
that back again. So such a gem.
Oh,
I wish I
that
could
is
do.
incredible. That is
Yeah.
all new history and information to me. So I'm so glad that you shared that.
Yeah.
What was the last meal you had at a Disney park?
Okay, taking it back to Port Orleans. So 2 weekends ago, my husband and I did like a little staycation at
Hmm.
Port Orleans, meaning we do these. If we're like splurging on when I say like a nicer hotel, I mean like a resort, a Disney resort where you don't want to leave to because
Yeah.
the food and the pools are great. And we'll do like Grand Floridian sometimes. We'll do Coronado, which is one of my
Uh-huh.
favorites. This
Yes.
time we did Port Orleans. So amazing. I am obsessed with that resort. You never have to leave. Such
Hmm.
great dining. And we had dinner at Scat Cat Club's Lounge, which is the live jazz music venue.
Hmm.
And we had the andouille sausage nachos and finished with the beignets. And it was just a perfect night. And you have the live band playing. And
Yeah.
it's somewhere that's so special and such an underrated gem. Not a lot
Yes.
of people talk about, the live music like that
Yeah.
there. And it was absolutely lovely.
Yeah. It is definitely a spot that transports you
Mhm.
off of Disney property,
Right.
even though
You
you're
would have
still
no
on the
idea that
property.
you're at Walt
None.
Disney, like, and that's what I was
Yeah.
thinking the entire time as I'm in this, like, very dimly lit, moody
Yeah.
jazz club. I'm like, "Where am I?" You know?
Yeah.
It kinda brought me back to, like, Pleasure Island days where I
Hmm.
just felt like I'm not at Disney World, I am somewhere else, and it's the best.
Oh, it's amazing. I can't wait to be back there soon.
Yes.
All right.
Oh, exciting.
Last question. Outside of the theme parks of Orlando or Anaheim, what is your favorite city to eat in?
Ooh, it's probably gonna be New York or New Jersey, just
Okay.
because I'm from there, and I am actually going back this week, and I'm already, like, making my list, and it's always gonna be something pizza related,
Hmm.
a bagel. You guys now have pop-up bagels in Orlando, which is an incredible bagel that got
Oh,
started
okay.
in New York. It just
Okay.
opened in, I believe, in Winter Park. Incredible bagel. So I'm gonna be going back to the Northeast, and I'm eating Italian food, as much as my heart content. And that is what I'm getting ready to do right now.
I
So
love it. I love it. Yeah. Well, have a wonderful trip.
thank
Thank
you.
you so much for
Thank
joining me
you.
today. I want everyone to know where can they find you, website, social media, anything you want to promote.
Yeah, absolutely. My website and Instagram is all Adventures by Carly, and my book, the Unofficial Disney Parks Retro Cookbook, is available for pre-order now, and we are up everywhere, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Target, which is like crazy to me. I'm like, oh my God, I'm on Target.
That's
I
so
love Target.
cool.
Yeah. So pre-order it now if you can. I am really excited to have that out in the world and talk about Disney food, which is my favorite subject.
Yeah. Well, again, thank you. I am so excited to
Thank
dig into the
you.
book when it comes out. You are your own Disney Jim, so it was so nice to have you on today.
I
And
appreciate it.
everybody, make sure you go out, you follow Carly, you pre-order the book, and we'll have to have you back on here very soon, and we
I
can
would love
talk
to.
all other avenues of Disney.
Yes, I would absolutely love that. I thank you so much. And yes, we have to eat a meal together.
Yes, we will plan that very, very soon.
Yes.